My name is Phoenix Rollins. I am 49 years old and I am the CEO of a successful video game company. Some people say I sold my soul to the devil for wealth, while others tell lots of false stories about where my wealth comes from.
Before we continue with the story, do not forget to click on the subscription button in order to get notified at every new video posted. Thank you.
Since my childhood, I had enjoyed playing video games. I was fascinated by the way these games were built. It became a passion over time, and I decided to become the owner of a game development company after my studies. My mother and my friends thought I was crazy. At the university, we were only two girls in this field of specialization, but that did not discourage me. The most painful part of my story was the fact that my husband was one of those who constantly fought to tarnish my image in the game industry. We met during my last year at university, and he declared his love to me. He was the first man in my life. After graduation, I agreed to marry him, though we were only 19, despite my mother not agreeing. He was working as an executive assistant in his father's company, but he refused me the right to work. The excuse was my pregnancy, and I accepted because I thought he was right. A few months later, I gave birth and stayed home with my baby until she was 1 year old. I then offered to take a nanny to take care of our daughter so that I could find a job. I then got discouraged by him, telling me this was not a world for women, and every time I insisted, he would get angry and it would end in a quarrel. His goal was to have another child. After many unsuccessful attempts, he accused me of meanness because he thought I was taking birth control pills to prevent a second pregnancy. I became his worst enemy, and after 3 years, our marriage ended. It devastated me because I simultaneously lost my mother. I fell into depression. How was I going to take care of my little baby without money? My mother, who was my last resort, had also left me. I was admitted to a mental hospital while my baby was handed over to social services. One day, deep in my suicidal thoughts after the failure of this first attempt, an old lady approached me and said, "If only I had your youth, no one would stop me. Don't waste it." She was 90 years old and also was very funny. Plus, she looked a lot like my mother. She had been sentenced to life imprisonment in a psychiatric center for having killed her husband and his mistress after having caught him in full adultery. After hearing these words, I couldn't sleep at night, and guilt took hold of me. I then reminded myself that my daughter did not deserve the pain I had inflicted on her, and that it was my duty not to make her a broken human. I began taking my medication correctly and to do all my mental exercises diligently. After a few months, I was released and contacted my best friend from high school. She was married to a wealthy entrepreneur and was the mother of 3 children. I worked for her as a nanny, and in return I could live with her and have free food and save my salary. She allowed me to use her computer whenever I needed it. I spent a lot of time developing games. After 2 years, I got a computer, and my daughter and I moved in a small apartment that I was able to rent. After taking over her custody, I multiplied the jobs in restaurants in order to meet all our needs. I went to the game companies and offered them my concepts, and each time they promised to call me but never did. After several tries, I decided to build these concepts entirely by myself. I was motivated. I don't know what got into me, but I decided to go to the headquarters of the highest listed company in the field. And when I was asked if I had an appointment with the CEO, I said yes. While his secretary tried to call him to confirm, I rushed to his office and put my laptop on his table. The security guards walked in, and as they tried to force me out, I begged the CEO to give me only 10 minutes of his time to pitch my concept to him. He asked them to leave. I showed him my work, explaining the outline to him, and after I was done, he looked up and said, "Who are you?" "Phoenix Rollins, sir," I replied in a trembling and anxious voice. "Sit down and tell me more. This is how my game was bought for the hefty sum of $10 million. Today, I own a successful video game company called The Phoenix Games, and my daughter is the chief engineer. She brings a forward thinking vision to my business, which has become the hallmark behind our success.